Hello everyone and welcome to this video on the Python programming language and machine learning. So in this video I will try to predict if the price of a company's stock will increase or decrease based on top news headlines using sentiment analysis and of course machine learning. Now, for those of you that don't know what sentiment analysis is, it is the process of computationally identifying and categorizing opinions expressed in a piece of text, especially in order to determine whether the writer's attitude towards a particular topic, product, or subject, etc., is positive, negative, or neutral. Now, currently I'm on Google's website. It's called colab.research.google.com, and I'm on it because it makes it really easy to start programming in Python. All you have to do is go to this website and then log in using your Google account and get started writing your Python code. So let's go ahead and get started writing this code. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is come over here to the left, click on File, and then click on New Notebook, and a new tab open up for you, and then eventually a new cell will open up for you as well. Now, the first thing that I'm going to do is put a little comment here, and I'm going to put a little description about the program. So I'm just going to type description. There we go. And I'm going to say that this program predicts if the stock price of a company will increase or decrease. And I'm going to put using or based on top news headlines. All right, so this program predicts if the stock price of a company will increase or decrease based on top news headlines. That's good. And I'm going to create a new cell by clicking this code button here in the top left. And I'm going to install some dependencies. So I'm just going to type pip install, and I want to use something called Vader sentiment. Okay, and I'm going to run this cell by clicking this button here to the left. And this should install this package for me. So this may take some time. But if it doesn't, then I probably won't pause the video. And it didn't. It didn't take long at all. Okay, so let's go ahead and create a new cell by clicking this code button. And now in this cell, I'm going to import the libraries that I plan on using throughout the program. So I'm going to import pandas as PD. And next I'm going to import numpy as NP. Next from text blob, I'm going to import text blob. All right. Next, I'm going to import RE. And from Vader sentiment dot Vader sentiment, I'm going to import sentiment intensity analyzer. Next, from sklearn dot model underscore selection, I'm going to import train underscore test underscore split. And from sklearn.metrics, I'm going to import accuracy score and classification report. I'm not sure which one I'm going to use yet, so I'm just going to get them both. Next, from sklearn.discriminant analysis, I'm going to import linear discriminant analysis. Okay, next I'm going to go ahead and run this cell. All right, so it looks good. I'm going to create a new cell. All right, let's bring this on up, and now let's load some data. So we're going to load the data sets. So from google.colab, I'm going to import files. Okay, next I'm just going to type files.upload to upload the file, and let's run this cell and click on choose files. And I'm going to upload these two files here. One is a data set or a CSV file for the news, the top headlines on the Dow Jones Industrial Average Index. And the other one is the price of the Dow Jones Industrial Average Index. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and click open, and then I will pause the video because I believe that this will take some time. It's a very large data set. And then I'm going to resume the video once it's finished. Okay, so I'll see you guys in a little bit. Okay, so now I'm back and the data set is loaded. So let's go ahead and create a new cell. All right, in this cell, I'm going to store the data into variables. So I'm going to create a variable called df1, and I'm going to set it equal to pd.read_csv, and I'm going to read in that news file. So that's here. I'm just going to highlight it and then copy it using Control C and then paste it here using Control V. And I'm going to create another variable called df2, and I'm going to set it equal to pd_csv, and then I'm going to input the stock price there. So that's the Dow_Jones_industrial_average_stock.csv file. All right, so I'm going to highlight it and copy it using Control C, then come down here and paste it using Control V. And let's go ahead and just give this a run. Okay, so I misspelled, I didn't finish putting pd.read_csv. So let's do this again. And now that looks good. Let's create a new cell. And now in this cell, I want to show the first 3 rows of data for df1. So just type df1.head and then input the number 3. And let's run this and take a look at the data set. Okay, so this is the data set. We have the date. So this is the day that the news was out for the Dow Jones. And then we have this label column. And the label column tells us if the adjusted close price for that day went down or up. And so if it went down, that would be indicated by the number 0. And if it went up, that would be indicated by the number 1. Okay. And then next, we have all of these columns, the top news articles. So we have top 1, top 2, top 3. We keep going all the way down. We have top 25 news articles. Okay. So, or top 25 news headlines. So that looks pretty good. Now I'm actually curious how many rows of data we have. So let's go ahead and create a new cell and let's take a look at the number of rows and the columns. So we're going to get the number of rows and columns. So just type df1.shape and let's run this. Okay, so we have 1,989 rows of data and then 27 columns. So pretty interesting. All right, next let's go ahead and create a new cell and let's print the first 3 rows of data for df2. So just type df2.head and then input the number 3 and let's run this and take a look at that data set. Okay, so we can see we have our date column here. We have the open price, the high price, the low price, the close price, the volume, and then the adjusted close price. All right. So the label in the first data set should correspond with that adjusted close price. It should let us know when this adjusted close price increases or decreases, based on the label. Now, I'm curious how many rows of data we have here. So let's go ahead and create a new cell and let's get the number of rows and columns for df2. And I'm going to make that a capital G. So just type df2.head and then input, oh, sorry, we want the number of rows and columns. So we want df2.shape. So let's go ahead and run this. Okay, so we have 1,989 rows of data, which is good. And then we have our 7 columns. All right, so everything looks good so far. Let's go ahead and create a new cell. And I really want to create my own data set. So what we're going to do is we're going to merge these 2 data sets. So let's go ahead and put that here. Merge the data set. And we're going to merge it on the date field. All right, so I'm going to create a variable called merge, and I'm going to set it equal to df1 dot merge, and we're going to merge df1 with df2, and we're going to do something called an inner merge. So we're going to set how equal to inner, and we're going to merge on the date column, and then I'm going to set the left index equal to true. All right, so that should create our merged data set. And let's run this. And let's create a new cell. And now I want to show the merge data set. So just type merge and let's run this. Okay, I probably should have only looked at the first 3 rows. So, oh well, that's fine. I will just keep it like this for now. And let's take a look. So we have date, we have label 1, we have top news headlines here, all the way up to 25, I think it should be, right? And now we have the other data set as well with the prices of the stock and the volume. So we have our merged data set, and it's all merged on the date column here. All right, so let's go ahead and create a new cell. I'm going to bring this up now that we have our merged data set, and I want to combine all of the news headlines into one column. So all of the news headlines for one row, I want to combine in its own column. So that's what we're going to do here. So let me just type combine the top news headlines. So I'm going to create a variable called headlines, and I'm going to set it equal to, put headlines with an S. I'm going to set it equal to an empty list, and for row in the range 0 to the length of our data set. So that's merge.index. I want to append to headlines. So I'm going to type headlines.append. I want to append the top news headlines, right? So I'm going to append a space so I can separate each of the headlines by a space, dot join, and I'm going to join the string x for x in merge dot iloc on the row from column 2 to column, let's see, from column 2 or index 2. No, I'm sorry, from column 2. Yes, so from column 2 to the 27th column, because there are 25 news headlines. So 25 plus 2 would be 27. All right, so I think that would work. And let's see here. I think that looks good. I'm just going to run this. Okay, let's create a new cell. And in this cell, I'm going to print a sample of the combined headline, or headlines with an S. So I will just print headline at position 0. So let's run this. Okay, there's no headline, it's headlines. So let's go ahead and run this. All right, and now I have an example of one of the rows. It should be the first row. Let's go back up here. Yep, so we can see we have this headline here, and then we have this headline here. And so if I go down, we can see the first headline here, and we can see the second headline here. Okay, and then of course it just keeps appending all of the headlines. So that's really good, but there's a problem. This data set is dirty, and I'm going to put that in quotes. So we need to clean the data set. I want to get rid of some of these B's and quotation marks and slashes. So let's go ahead and clean up this data set. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new cell, and in this cell I'm just going to type clean the data, and I'm going to create a variable called clean underscore headlines, and I'm going to set this equal to an empty list. Now for I in range 0 to the length of headlines, I want to do some substitutions. So I want to find these specific characters like those slashes or those B's, and I want to replace them with an empty string. So I'm going to type clean underscore headlines dot append, and I'm going to append re.sub, and I'm going to look for the B character followed by the single quotes, or a single quote. There we go. And then once I find it, I want to replace it with the empty string. Okay. And I want to do this for each of the headlines. So headlines at position I. So this right here should remove the B with the single quote. All right. So that looks good. Now I've only removed one character so far that I've appended to clean headlines. So I also want to get rid of some other things. So I'm just going to type clean underscore headlines at position I. And I'm going to set this equal to re.sub, and I'm going to remove the characters starting with the B, and then any double quote after it. So that should do it. And I'm going to replace it with the empty string as well. And we're going to be using clean underscore headlines at position I. All right. So that should get rid of, that should remove the B with the double quote. All right. And next I want to remove that slash. So I'm going to type clean underscore headlines at position I, and I'm going to set it equal to re.sub, and I'm going to put in these double quotes here, and I want to remove that slash. And then what's interesting is that slash seems to be followed by a single quote. So I'm going to put a little single quote here as well. And we're going to substitute that with the empty string from clean underscore headlines at position I. All right, and if I have not made any mistakes, this should run if I haven't made any mistakes. All right, so here I'm removing the slash with the single quote. All right, so let's go ahead and run this. Okay, let's go ahead and create a new cell, and let's take a look at that clean data now. So I'm going to show the combined clean headlines. So just type clean underscore headlines, and I'm going to choose position just 20. Maybe I should choose the same one that we looked at first at position 0. So let's go ahead and run this. All right. So now we can see that the data looks a lot cleaner than it did before. So if I go back up, this is what the data set looked like before. where you can see all the B's and the slashes and the single quotes and the double quotes. And now the data looks like this. So I think it looks a lot better. Hopefully I didn't remove something that's needed. And let's take a look at another index. Let's say 20, and let's run this. Okay. So the data set is looking decent. It's looking cleaner than it did before. All right. So now we have this nice clean data set. Let's go ahead and add this to our original data set, our merged data set. So I'm gonna create a new cell, and I want to add the clean headlines to the merge data set. So I'm just gonna type merge, and I'm gonna create a new column. I'm gonna call it combined underscore news, and I'm gonna set it equal to clean underscore headlines, and that should do it. So next I'm gonna go ahead and show the new column. So just type merge and then combined underscore news, and let's just do a sample at position 0, and let's run this. Okay, so I misspelled merge, and let's run this again. Okay, so there it is. That looks really, really good. All right, so let's create a new cell, and now I'm just going to show the first 3 rows of our merge data set. So here, show the first 3 rows of the merge data set. So just type merge dot head, input the number 3, and let's run this. Okay, and now if I scroll all the way over, we can see the new column combined news. So everything looks really good so far. All right, let's go ahead and create a new cell. Now that we have this data set, I want to create a few functions to get the subjectivity and the polarity. So that's what we will do here. So I'm going to create a function to get the subjectivity. All right. So let's just call this function get subjectivity, and it's going to take in some text, and then it's going to return text blob, that's going to input the text, and I want the subjectivity, so that's dot sentiment dot subjectivity. Yes. Okay. Next, I'm going to create a function to get the polarity. So just type def, and I'm going to call it get polarity, and it's going to take in some text, and then it's going to return the text blob text dot sentiment dot polarity. Perfect. All right. So I think that looks good. Let's run this. Okay. Next, I'm going to create a new cell. And now in this cell, I'm going to create 2 new columns, and these columns will contain the subjectivity and the polarity. So all I have to do is apply these 2 functions that I've just created, and it will go ahead and do all the calculations for us. So here, I'm going to create 2 new columns. One will be called subjectivity, and the other will be called polarity. Okay, so just type merge and then call this column subjectivity, and all I have to do is set this equal to merge combined underscore news, because that's the text that we want the subjectivity and polarity of. So I want the subjectivity and polarity of the combined news, and I'm going to type dot apply. So we're going to apply the function called get subjectivity. All right. And to make this go a little bit faster, I'm just going to highlight this, copy it using Control C, and then paste it using Control V. I'm going to change subjectivity to polarity, and I'm going to change get subjectivity to get polarity. All right. Now let's go ahead and run this. All right, this may take some time, so I will go ahead and pause the video and then come back when it's done. Okay, so that didn't take too long. Next, let's go ahead and create a new cell. And now in this cell, I'm going to show the new data, or show the new columns in the merge data set. So just type merge dot, I'm just going to do head 3, and let's run this. All right, so now if I scroll all the way over here, we now have the subjectivity and the polarity of the text. Okay, so I think that's really good. I guess I should also mention that the polarity is a float, which lies in the range from -1 to 1, where 1 means positive statement and -1 means a negative statement. And then the subjectivity generally refers to personal opinion or emotion or judgment, whereas the objective or objectivity would refer to factual information. And so this right here is also on a scale of subjectivity. So subjectivity is a float, which lies in the range of 0 and 1, and a 0 being objective. So that means that the subject is objective, and a 1 would be, I'm sorry, the a 0 would be objective, and a 1 would be subjective. All right. So that's what these values here mean. So I hope I explained that well. I will go through it one more time. The polarity is in a range from negative to positive, from a scale of -1 to 1. Of course, -1 being negative and 1 being positive. And then the subjectivity is on a subjectivity to objective or objectivity scale from 0 to 1, 0 being objective and 1 being subjective. All right. Okay, so let's go ahead and create a new cell. All right, so now in this cell, I am going to get the the sentiment score. So I want to know what percentage is positive, what percentage is negative, and what percentage is neutral. And then if we add all these scores up together, it should be equal to 100%. All right, so let's do that now. So I'm going to create a function to get the sentiment scores. And I'm going to be using the sentiment intensity analyzer. So let's create this function, and I'm going to call it get sentiment intensity analyzer, SIA for short, and it's going to input some text. Okay, and now the first thing that we're going to do is create a sentiment intensity analyzer object. So I'm going to create a variable called SIA and set it equal to sentiment intensity analyzer. All right, and next we will get the polarity score. So I'm going to create a variable called sentiment, and I'm going to set it equal to SIA dot polarity scores, or polarity underscore scores, and it's going to take in some text, and then I'm going to return the sentiment. All right, so let's go ahead and run this, and let's create a new cell. Now I want to get the sentiment scores for each day. So I'm going to create a few lists. So one I'm going to call compound, and I'm going to set that equal to an empty list. The other one will be called neg, which will be short for negative. It's going to be equal to an empty list. I'm going to call the other one POS, pause, for positive. is going to be equal to an empty list. And I'm going to do NEU for neutral, and it's going to be equal to an empty list. And let's see, I'm going to set, why not, set SIA equal to 0. I may or may not use this actually. I'm still kind of thinking this out as I go through, but SIA will be a number value. So, maybe I add these scores up. I don't know yet. I'm still going through this. So let's just keep going with it. So for I in range 0 to the length of merge, and we want merge combined underscore news. All right, so we're going to go through each combined news. I'm going to set SIA equal to get SIA, and get SIA is going to take in some text, so it's going to take in that merge text. So merge combined news, and I need to tell it which row, so it's going to be the row at index I. Okay, so now that should give me the sentiment scores. Okay, now what I'm going to do is, now that I have the sentiment scores, I'm going to use the compound list, and I'm going to append to that list the SIA compound number. All right, so if you don't know what compound is, compound is basically the score or a score or a metric that calculates the sum of all the lexicon ratings which have been normalized between -1, which is the most extreme negative, and +1, which is the most extreme positive. Okay? All right. So now we have that compound score. Let's go ahead and get the negative score. So I'm going to type neg.append SIA, and then I want neg. And I'm going to get the neutral score. So neu.append SIA neu. And then I want the positive score. So pos.append SIA POS. Okay, so this should give us all of the scores: compound, negative, positive, and neutral. So let's go ahead and run this. Okay, and now it's done. Let's go ahead and create a new cell. All right, now let's store the sentiment scores in the merge dataset. Okay, so I'm just going to type merge, and then I'm going to put compound, and I'm going to set this equal to compound, then merge negative, and that's going to be equal to neg, and then merge neutral, and that will be equal to neu, and then last but not least, merge positive, and that's going to be equal to POS. Okay, so let's go ahead and run this, and let's create a new cell, and now let's show the merge data. So just type merge dot head, and I'm going to print the first 3 rows. Let's run this, and let's go all the way over, and now we can see the scores. We have the compound score, the negative score, the neutral score, and then the positive score. All right, and again, if we add up the negative, neutral, and positive scores, it should add up to 1. So let's just keep going here, and let's create a new cell. Now that we have all of this data in one data set. Now what we can do is we can basically collapse the data set a little bit and then create a model to train our data on and see if it can predict or classify if the price of the Dow Jones will increase or decrease. All right. So I'm going to create a list of columns that I want to keep. So I'm going to create a variable called keep underscore columns, and I'm going to set this equal to, let's see, I will keep the open price. I will keep the high price. I'm going to keep the low price. I am going to keep the volume. Okay. And I'm not going to use the close price or the adjusted close price. And I'm going to keep the subjectivity. I'm not going to use any of the top news articles. I will get the polarity, and I want the compound, and then I want the negative score. I want the neutral score, and I want the positive score. And then last but not least, I want the label, whether it's a 0 or 1, telling us if the stock went up or down. Okay. All right. So that looks good. I'm going to create a variable called df, and I'm going to set it equal to merge. And I'm going to use only the columns from keep underscore columns. Now let's take a look at the data set. So just type df, and let's run this. All right, so it looks like I messed up somewhere. Let's see. I misspelled keep. And let's run this. All right, now this is the data set that I plan on using to determine if the stock price will increase or decrease. All right, so now let's create a new cell, and let's create the feature data set. So I'm going to create a variable called x, and I'm going to set it equal to df, and then I'm going to set x equal to np.array, and we're going to drop that label column. So just type x dot drop, and the column that I want to drop is the label. And again, I want to drop the column, so we're going to put 1 there. All right, next I want to create the target data set. So that's the data contained in the label column. So I'm going to create a variable called y and set it equal to np.array, and we're going to get df label column. All right, now let's go ahead and run this, and let's create a new cell. And now I'm going to split the data into 80% training. So we're going to have 80% of our data will be for training the model, and 20% of the data will be for testing the model. Okay. All right. So I'm going to create a few variables: x train, x test, y train, and y test. And I'm going to set this equal to train underscore test underscore split. And we're going to input our x data set and the y data set, the feature and target data sets. And then we're going to give this a testing size. So I'm going to set that equal to 20%, 0.2. And I'm going to give it a random state. So the random state will be equal to 0. Okay. So let's go ahead and run this. And let's create a new cell. And now I'm going to create let's do this. Let's create and train the model. So I'm going to create a variable called model and set it equal to linear discriminant analysis. dot fit, and we're going to train it with the x underscore train data set and the y underscore train data set. All right, so let's go ahead and run this. All right, that looks good. Create a new cell. And now I guess I want to show the model's predictions. So I'll create a variable called predictions and set it equal to model.predict. And we're going to predict on the test data set. So x underscore test. And let's type predictions and let's run this. So of course it's just a bunch of ones and zeros. So we would have to take a look at the x test data set and see if this indeed matches. I'm sorry, with the y test data set and see if this indeed matches up. So let's go ahead and create a new cell. And let's just put y underscore test here and let's run this. Okay, and we can see a few match and a few don't. So like here, the y test data set has 0, and on the prediction here, it has a 1. Okay, so the model obviously is not perfect, but let's go ahead and continue and let's get some metrics on the model and see how well it is, see how well it's doing. So we're going to show the model metrics. So I'm just going to print classification underscore report, y underscore test, predictions, and let's go ahead and run this. Okay, so we can see that the model is about 84% accurate. So that's pretty cool. Not bad at all. Not bad at all. So this right here is just a fun exercise. I hope you all enjoyed it. So you can basically use this model to try and predict if the price of a stock will go up or down. And who knows, this model may or may not help you, but as long as you guys learned something, I'm very happy with that. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please leave any questions you have in the comment section. Don't forget to hit that like button and that subscribe button. And if you found this video helpful, please share it. And I also want to give a shout out to the Patreon supporting this channel. Thank you very much. I truly, truly appreciate it. And I want to send a special thanks to the Patreons Andre from Ecuador and Tate Valdez. So thank you guys. And as always, I will see you all in the next video.